Dr. Bensong risked everything when he used the quantum leap accelerator to travel back in time. Now our team's working to find out why. As he leaps between bodies with no memory of who he is, he still has one hope. That his next leap takes him back.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corman Productions with my co-host Stacie, here to talk about the new Quantum Leap Revival Season 1, Episode 16, titled Ben Interrupted. The episode's description reads as follows. In the 1950s, Ben has to team up with Leaper X to set right with what once went wrong. The episode was directed by Judy Wang. I believe this is her first work on this series. And the episode was written by Annalise Colville Medina, and I also believe that this is her first episode in this series.
Her first episode of writing at all, actually.
Oh, really? I did not know that. I didn't actually look into either one of these credits.
Similarly to, what was it, SOS?
Yes.
It was another assistant that they got to write an episode. So.
Oh, sweet deal.
Yeah.
Well, they both did a good job in this episode, and I strongly recommend that they bring these two back. Before going any further, I will tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a spoiler-free podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you go and check it out, and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're on one of the platforms that this podcast is now available, please subscribe. You can also head over to my YouTube channel, Corman Productions, where additional content can be discovered, both Quantum Leap related and otherwise. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, as well as subscribing to my channel. Couple of shout-outs this week. One, a sad one for Lance Reddick, who died on March 17th, 2023, this year, of course, at the age of 60. Lance Reddick was in the John Wick movies, the series Fringe, which, did you ever watch Fringe?
Yes.
Yes,
yep.
So you're familiar with this actor. And, of course, The Wire, which is when I would say he would first got notoriety. So that's a very sad passing for that actor. And, we have a shout out for Kelly M, who had a very good comment. I know you saw this, but, some people listening might not have read this comment. I'm going to read it verbatim because it's a really good comment. She said, Jen's bunny story, this is from last episode, and which I endlessly made fun of, is based on an actual parable about babies being thrown in the river. The lesson is basically that if you only focus on the immediate need, saving the babies from drowning in the river, you won't solve the root of the problem, solving whoever's throwing the babies in the river. Now, she actually ended up getting this from Fate's Wide Wheel, our brother podcast, sister podcast. They're men, so I'll say brother. But yeah.
See, and this is what we get because we, don't listen to them before we record. I only listen to them after we record. So.
Yeah.
Except this week I did cheat on that.
You did?
I did.
Well, we're a little late on this one. I've
been sitting on this episode for like 4 days, so I have listened to the other pods at this point.
I think you basically already made up your mind before listening to them anyway on this episode. All right, and she also says, I love seeing Jen as a hologram, but it does raise some questions. Most notably, if anyone can be a hologram, why hasn't anyone else done it? Especially in episode 3, where Addison was literally collapsing from exhaustion. Even if Addison didn't want to let go of the situation, you'd think someone else would insist, and I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, why weren't Ian and Addison glitching and let them play? And they were both in the imaging chamber at the same time. Now, you replied to this comment. Do you remember what you said?
Yeah, that's, as far as the two people in the imaging chamber, it's something that came up in the Facebook group. So there was a lot of discussion on that. And I came up with, a few possible reasons. One, and I think we talked about this before, was that, in Let Them Play, it was just the very tail end, right? Ian was only in there for a couple of minutes. It wasn't something they were trying to maintain. But to counter that, it didn't seem like it was very long that Addison and Jen were in there together before we saw a problem either. Another thing could be someone else brought this up, that they were... it's because they were talking. They were both trying to talk to Ben, and that could be taking more energy than, how Ian was just watching a game. And then something I came up with was possibly, they had this new program running to track Martinez, and maybe that was pulling their juice. So they had less energy at this point overall.
Some very good explanations. So, Stacie, your thoughts on this week's episode?
So, this episode obviously was phenomenal. And I was joking about this online, like, how many times can you change your mind about which episode's your favorite episode.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's crazy. We're going to have to, once we hit the finale and we're in our hiatus, we're going to have to go back and reevaluate all the episodes and make our own personal lists of where we rank them.
Right.
And I think I'm going to have a really hard time doing that because there's so many phenomenal episodes. And there's, a bunch of mediocre episodes. I don't think it'll be as hard picking my bottom favorites.
Mm-hmm.
But the top's going to be difficult for this
absolutely.
season of TV.
Yeah, my previous favorite was O Ye of Little Faith, and I think this episode might have topped that.
Yeah. See, I have like here's my top 5, which isn't much for, a season where we're at, what are we at, 16 episodes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, yeah, this episode was a great episode. The atmosphere in the episode was great. The story was simple, which was very much effective it was very much a good choice to go with a very simple story.
I've been saying that I expected an episode to come up where we're not focusing on the leap.
And that's not really true because the main story was taking place in the leap.
We were in the leap.
Yeah.
90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But also we weren't focusing on the story of the leap. We were focusing on the dynamics between Martinez and Ben and everybody. So the leap really did kind of take a backseat, even though we were living in it.
Right.
So this, I think, is this is as close as we're going to get to what I was expecting, and I think that was a great choice.
Oh, absolutely.
And I equate it with Evil Leaper 3, where they're in the prison.
Right, okay.
The prison story takes the back seat
to,
the Leaper story.
Oh, yeah.
And so I feel like this is a lot like this. Like, they introduce us to these characters, Elaine and Judith. We get sympathetic with them. We want to see Judith get out and meet with her sister. We have
just enough story there to feel something about it.
Right.
But not so much that it takes over the focus of the episode.
Right. We're not getting a ton of backstory. Like, Ben himself, he's a private eye.
Mm.
All we know is he was hired to come here and pretend to be a patient at this hospital, which is what Ben's doing. We have zero backstory on his host. We don't care about the host, right?
Right. No, absolutely not.
So I think this is really it. This is what I was talking about, is where it's less about the leap. The leap itself kind of took a backseat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that we could focus on getting this story together.
And finally have some forward momentum on the main story.
We've got so much.
Right.
And,
you would think that I would have problems with the pacing, but in this episode, pitch perfect. Yeah. It was done very well.
We'd both expressed concerns, about this story coming together.
Mm-hmm.
I have no more. I don't think that's a problem anymore. This really did it, and I'm confident that when we get to the finale, it's going to be a beautiful story.
Yeah, absolutely. They won me over with this episode because for a while now, like, I've been really concerned that they were going to stick the landing on this. Not so much anymore.
Yeah, and it's all. And there were so many callbacks, and they're pulling the information together for us.
Yep.
Now, one thing we were concerned about all season, really, and we keep bringing up is the audience going to be able to follow this story?
It's not that complicated.
I don't think it's that complicated, but I'm seeing a lot of people who are already very confused online.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, I think that's with the older viewers that are having a hard time following the story, who would have a hard time following any kind of story. So I think that's where a lot of the confusion is. I didn't actually look into some of these people, but
I think that, as you said, this is a common problem with modern television, is the stories tend to be really more complicated than they used to be, because you have to have this really complicated story to keep certain viewers' attention.
Right.
And then you lose other people.
Right.
And I'm afraid that we are losing some people here. And I hope that the finale not only nails it for us, but nails it for the people who are already confused and unconfuses them. Because I've spent the last 4 days trying to put out fires of people very confused about what's going on the Facebook groups, and even on Twitter.
I have seen a few fans who are like, no, you're like way off there. You're way off base.
And people are off in different directions too. It's not like it's one issue. It's like, I don't know. Some people are like all over the place with what they think is going on. Like what they think that we know. And it's like, no, we don't know that.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, all in all, I thought this was a great episode. I can't wait to dive into it. We got plenty to discuss for this week's episode.
Yeah,
sure.
I gave a warning on my Twitter. I said our episode this week's going to be late and long.
Yeah, and then in another couple of days, we'll have another of these episodes coming out. because we have another episode coming in a couple days. Well, I think by the time this drops, it'll be airing that night. So, yeah, anyway. Ben ends up leaping in. His wife is talking about his mental health problems to a doctor. He's asked questions by this doctor, and this doctor looked familiar to me. I know the actor's name, or did when I looked into it, but I actually remember him as being more of a comedic actor back in the day. He had a role in the movie Old School. Ben ends up bluffing his way through.
Not very well.
Not very convincingly at all, but
No.
that's fine, actually.
And, you know, his first thing was, he was asked who's the president. He said JFK.
Yeah.
Now, that seemed like a really poor choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because JFK was only president for 2 years, two
Right.
and a half years. Well, close to 3, I guess.
Yeah.
But
And
that's
for some
shorter than most presidents.
Yeah. For some reason, Ben is asked his name, and he looks at the guy's glasses for answers, and I don't know what that was about.
I think he was just looking everywhere trying to get context clues about the whole situation. I mean, he came up with his last name because the doctor had referred to the wife as Mrs. O'Connor. So he's like,
Mr. O'Connor.
Mr. O'Connor.
And then he's all proud of himself. Like, not too good of a job this week, Ben, but you didn't really have much to go on.
Yeah, so he was a few years off with JFK. I don't know, maybe he couldn't think of any other presidents from the mid-century. I don't know.
So his wife wants to convince him, and Ben is very much against this. The doctor gives him a moment and realizes that all is not what it seems. Ben is actually undercover, helping to get this woman's sister out, and she congratulates him on pretending to have a memory loss problem. Which is very much
she's like, you did a great job selling that.
Yeah, thanks. The doctor comes off caring, but he is anything but, as we will eventually learn. Ben is carted to his room. We got some creepy music, nicely atmospheric, flashes of lightning, the sounds of insanity in the background. Everything about this was just perfect. One of the doctors is telling him to stick to the schedule or else, essentially.
That's Lawrence. So you mentioned music, and I didn't, right up at the top, when we first went into that exam, they're playing Mr. Sandman.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to bring up in a bit, is the fact that the music, like in this, it's like the original series. Like, we're setting the time and place with the music.
With music, right? And I love the music.
The original series did a lot, but not the series as much.
I'm a softie for 1950s music, so I love that. Now, something that I failed to realize when I watched, but people were talking about this online, Mr. Sandman is another Back to the Future reference.
Oh, nice.
So in Back to the Future,
right.
when Marty first gets to 1955, that's the song that's playing is Mr. Sandman. Which, side note, we'll leave the episode for a second. I got to do something awesome this week.
Oh, yeah?
I got to go to the movie theater and watch Back to the Future.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was
it's
in
not.
theaters.
Adam's work sponsored it. And we had a in-theater showing with his coworkers.
Oh, cool.
And it was pretty awesome experience.
I never got a chance to see it on the big screen. I did watch Back to the Future 2 and 3 on the big screen.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was fun. And sort of relevant to what we're talking about because we get all these awesome Back to the Future references in Quantum Leap. So yeah, I noticed that, and then later there was another 50 song that came up, and I have notes to say about
it was
about their music choices later. I'll bring that back up. But so you said, so he got brought by Lawrence, is who brought him to his cell.
He's basically an orderly, and he's a guy that we won't be dealing with for very long.
Yeah.
Because he is soon to be replaced. Addison ends up sneaking up on Ben, startling him. Not nice to do to a guy who's locked in an insane asylum. And he seems very anxious to leave. Can't say I blame him. He is told that he is actually Liam O'Connor, here to rescue Judith, who is the sister of the woman
who was pretending to be his wife, who's his person who hired him, Eileen. So Eileen's sister is Judith. That's who he's here to help. And do you watch American Horror Story, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you remember the season Asylum?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm getting very Briarcliff vibes from this whole setting.
I mean, I think that's because of the setting, for
sure.
Right,
because it's a 1950s asylum.
Yeah.
But I saw a lot of overtones here.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if the writers are a fan of American Horror Story, if any of this is intentional, but obviously we have the aesthetics of this creepy, really horrible asylum in the 50s.
And they do a very good job of setting that up.
Yeah.
Really.
And the person we're trying to save is somebody's sister named Judith.
Mm-hmm.
One of the main characters in AHS Asylum is Sister Jude.
Oh, that's right. And
Yeah.
she was played by, I can't remember her name, but she was like in almost every season of American Horror Story until she decided not to do it anymore.
Yes.
But yeah.
And I don't have her name in my head right this second.
Right.
I wasn't ready to say it, but very famous name. And just, I'll make the rest of my notes while we're talking about that. Him being a PI, getting admitted to the hospital, trying to help, was also assimilated to the Lana Winters character from AHS, because that's what she did. She went and had herself committed.
That's right. Yeah.
And she's actually based, of course, on the real life journalist, Nellie Bly. So this is all based on, the true story of the horrors of asylums in America.
Now I kind of want to go back and watch that season again.
And another simile is we find out, which I think that's probably right about in this conversation, we'll find out that, in the original history, this place, and this is called George's Island Asylum is where we're at. It was shut down in the 70s. That's the same thing that happened in American Horror Story. They got shut down in the 70s. So I saw a lot of mirroring throughout this episode.
I mean, I have to think that was intentional.
Even as much as the doctor, the terrible doctor here. We haven't learned he's so terrible yet, but Dr. Mueller is his name. That's a German name. Now, they didn't specifically say in this episode, hey, he's a Nazi. But American Horror Story, that's the thing, is the doctor that led the place was a Nazi who was doing these secret experiments on the patients. And
the doctor in that season was played by James Cromwell, which is something I do remember the name of. So yes, that's very interesting. I didn't see any of those connections because it's been so long since I saw that series. So Judith is here because her husband committed her as a means to get their marriage annulled so that he could marry someone else. Apparently Judith was having trouble having kids. Yeah. And so the husband took these steps.
We learned that later, that she lost 4 babies, which is really sad. And the husband decided to get rid of her for it and married someone else 3 months later.
What a guy. In the original history, neither Judith nor Liam ever left the asylum.
Yeah, so he did it. He failed at this gig that he took.
And failed spectacularly.
Yeah,
apparently.
Where he spent his life or was very soon murdered. I'm not sure which one. They didn't really indicate,
Yeah, he could have been killed, that's for sure.
Definitely seemed like people were not being kept around.
No.
That weren't going to be missed.
Addison suggests that he get a good night's sleep. In this place, hardy har har. They share a tender moment, and she leaves. There's an alarm, and we get a nice shot of the asylum and the rainstorm with some lightning. It's a beautiful shot. And credits.
Yeah, and the lightning, that adds to the aesthetic. People, of course, were comparing this episode to Shock Theater.
Yes. Which
we didn't really follow in those footsteps a lot, other than the fact that we're in a 1950s asylum. But having that thunderstorm setting, for this, really put us there as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. After the credits, Addison comes back, and Ben is not happy with the accommodations at this hotel. He would give it 0 stars, saying the place is creepy, and wondering how this place is supposed to improve anyone's mental health, and that's a very good question. Ben notices a map on the wall, and Addison says she'll run it by Ziggy to see if there's any hidden tunnels, but according to Ziggy, he has to stick to his schedule for now. Addison shows him a picture of Judith on a hammock and quickly leaves.
Yeah, so we got one of those little holographic images again.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And it was this picture of Judith, obviously set to look like it was from, the 40s.
Present day, Magic comes bearing coffee and asks Ian how the escape route is coming along.
And Magic got himself hot chocolate.
Yes.
Which Ian thought was hilarious. This caused there's a nice little debate going on Twitter about this.
Oh, yeah? What's the debate about?
About drinking hot chocolate. Do you drink hot chocolate?
I do drink hot chocolate. I wouldn't get it from Starbucks.
There was somebody on Twitter who seemed to think that was quite silly, because who would ever drink hot chocolate in March?
I don't know. I've done it.
Yeah, I had hot chocolate the other day. So I don't know. Fate's Wide Wheel. They were pretty pro hot chocolate.
Yeah.
And I sided with them as well.
Well, I'm going to side with them too.
And this conversation led me yesterday to having a hot chocolate when we were out to eat.
Oh, really? Well, the thing I say at my job is I don't judge people, I just serve. So if you want a hot chocolate and it's 90 degrees out, have at it. I don't have to drink it. But no, yeah, I drink hot chocolate. I drink it any time of the year. Maybe not necessarily if it's super duper hot outside, but still. March isn't even that warm.
Right.
March is kind of
That's
cold.
that was the thing. Like here where we live, it's pretty cold right now still.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we have a couple nice days, but we're expecting snow next week. So
Right. Ian still hasn't found anything.
Oh, and Jen was sent home.
Oh, yeah. So she's barely in this
Jen
episode.
has a cough, so they sent her home because they can't afford to get sick.
She's not completely absent. We do see her.
We see her at the very end. Yeah. I don't think she even had a line.
She does not.
Yeah, so...
I don't know what's up with that, other than maybe to give her a break after being so heavily featured in the last episode.
Right.
Or maybe she had some other commitment that she had to go to, like some other filming commitment. I don't know why she's barely in this episode.
Yeah.
But that could be why. I didn't actually look into it, but Magic, by the way, speaks Starbucks. He knew tall, venti, grande. I don't.
You don't?
No, I don't deal with in Starbucks. I work at Dunkin' Donuts. He's worried about Ben, saying that the 1950s is a dark time for mental health, and it definitely was.
Yeah.
Things are definitely better now, but we could still have ways to go for improvement. They get an alarm that Janice is tampering with her ankle monitor, and we finally...
Finally, we've got some answers. You've been asking every week.
Yes, for 3 episodes.
Where the heck is Janice? Is she locked up in a dungeon? She is not.
She's under house arrest at her mother's house.
Yeah,
Beth.
She's living with Beth, so we have to believe her mother has forgiven her, at least to some extent, for
I would think
drugging her and letting her fall to the floor.
I would think that initial conversation was probably a little bit on the awkward side. I forgive you for trying to kill me. Anyway.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. She didn't try to kill her, but she definitely didn't
risk severe injury.
Right. Like I've said all along, okay, if you felt like that you had to drug her, you could have at least put her on the couch and not let her fall and break a hip.
Right. Okay, so that answers that question that I've had for like 3 weeks. She's on house arrest.
She's hanging out with Beth.
But, and as they talk, she is now taken off the ankle monitor, forcing Magic to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
Cut to Ben, and we get some of the 1950s music.
This is the second song. Yep, they're playing the song Shaboom.
Shaboom.
Yep, which had just came out in 1954, which is when we're at. And an interesting thing about Shaboom, now I might be digging too deep in all this stuff. This all could be, I'm digging deeper than the writers. I don't know, but Shaboom was first released as the B-side to the record of the song Cross Over the Bridge, which is, something that comes up later in this episode, crossing a bridge.
Oh, okay. Maybe. I mean, the writers and the directing team did an absolute fantastic job, so I would not be surprised at all if that was very much done on purpose. And that's something that would fly over the heads of most people. It did me, not you, apparently. That's why we have you along.
Like I said, I like 1950s music, and I do have, like I said, other things to say about the music. I have a theory, and we'll talk about it at the end. A theory regarding where we're going. I have a theory.
Okay. Ben goes to his assigned seat, where he makes a friend, Ralph, and this friendship is very brief.
Yeah, I thought we were going to see more Ralph when we met him.
Not so much. Ben continues to be disappointed with the service when he's not really thrilled overall with the food. The friend points out, knows Judith, and describes her situation and the situation in general, which is pretty grim.
Yeah, and he hasn't seen Judith for a few days. That seemed concerning to Ben.
Yes, I would think so.
But what a coincidence. After having not seen her for a few days, she shows up in this moment.
Yeah, that's a little bit contrived maybe, but I don't care. The friend points out Judith, and Ben goes to talk to her, but she seems unresponsive. He lets Judith know who and why he is there. The orderly goes to yell at Ben for not being in his assigned seat, but Ralph picks this moment to cause problems. I was kind of curious if Ralph maybe did that on purpose.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100% Ralph did this to distract. Yeah, that's why I wish we did get more of Ralph. Like, he seemed like a fun character. Mm-hmm. And he seemed helpful.
And in his brief scene, he did a fine job acting. So, yeah. In the confusion, Judith asks Ben for the schedule and tells him to meet during library time. In the past, Ian is disturbed to learn the history. In the future, Ian is disturbed.
You do that a lot.
I mean, the show gets confusing with that, so,
It's going to get more confusing, I think, by episode 18.
I'm pretty sure you're right. So, Ian learns the history of the asylum Ben is at, which got shuttered and closed down in the 1970s, but not before treating the people in it like lab rats.
Yeah, and Dr. Mueller is experimenting on the patients.
Yes.
Who knew?
Yep, I'm shocked. I say I'm shocked. Ziggy ends up managing to get an escape route, which surprises Addison and Ian very quickly, and Ian ends up doing a Ziggy impression, which kind of rubs in the fact that we don't actually hear Ziggy ever.
So Addison said, "Thank Ziggy for me," and Ian, and I did see that this was ad-libbed by Mason. Ziggy has this robot voice that says,
"You're welcome, Addison."
Yeah, you're welcome, Addison. And I feel like this is foreshadowing.
Yeah, probably.
That Ziggy is going to get their voice back.
I mean, I would think so.
I really think we're doing it.
Especially,
I've been hoping for it and waiting for it all season.
Especially how this episode
ends. And we've got that teaser from Deborah Pratt right from the beginning of the season that Ziggy was going to be, what was it? Like is going to be introduced in a glorious way or something. I'm paraphrasing.
She did say that Ziggy would be get a voice at some point.
Yeah.
And, I mean, she is involved. We clearly saw her direct that episode.
Right, so she's around.
Yeah, so hopefully...
I'm waiting.
Right.
I'm waiting. I'm hoping.
All right, so Magic goes to Beth's house, where we see Susan Dial for the third time in this series as Beth.
Yeah, and I got spoiled that she was going to be in the episode.
I did not.
I was a little mad at myself. So, behind the scenes, what was going on? Behind the scenes, as in the real world... the week leading up to this episode, the people who get screeners, which isn't us, they usually get the episode several days in advance so that they can, prep their pods and their news articles and all that good stuff. They didn't get a screener for this episode. And, there was debate going around. Is that because, spoilers, there was something huge going to happen? And it turns out it wasn't that, although there was plenty to spoil in this episode. It really was just a technical issue that they didn't have it ready in time for them to watch. So it was even playing field, right? None of the critics had seen the episode yet until just before the episode aired, they finally got it. But there's also, the J.J. Lindell posters. He produces the posters every week. And I looked at the poster and I knew they warned it there was going to be spoilers in it, and it had the guest stars' names. Oh. So we had the 3 guest stars, 3 returning characters this week that we haven't, seen necessarily in a while. And I knew, obviously, we were going to see Martinez. We already knew that.
That was obvious. It
was in the promo photos. Could have guessed Janice was coming back. That had to happen soon. But I wasn't expecting Beth. And I was upset that I saw her name. I saw Susan's name on that poster, and I was like, oh, I shouldn't have looked. Because that would have been a nice surprise, to see her.
I mean, her presence in this episode is like a 5-second cameo.
Right, but it's great
it's still
to
good
see
to
her.
see her.
It's great
definitely.
to see her, yeah.
And this actually, with this appearance, she officially made more appearances in this series than she did in the original.
Right, and we're at, 5 overall episodes now for her?
Yeah, actually, I think it's 3. This is her 3rd appearance.
I mean, between...
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. 5
within the universe.
Gotcha.
She's played Beth in 5 episodes of television.
That makes sense. Okay, so as it turns out, Janice was trying to get Magic's attention. Right. Mainly because she was promised updates on Ben's leaps, which she doesn't get until after the fact, which she thinks is useless.
Yeah, and I think it's hilarious that she's like, I'm just going to rip this thing off my foot because I know you're going to come talk to me.
Right. And by the way, I saw quite a few people who were confused because her look was very different in this episode. So they thought it was a different actress entirely, some of them. But no, this is the same actress. She just got a new look. And
I didn't even notice that she looked different.
No? Yeah, she definitely looks different in this episode. I think it's her hair.
That happens. Ian's hair is very different in this episode as well. I think we had a delay in filming here.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay, so when Janice realizes where Ben is, which is 1954, which, by the way, is the same year as Shock Theater.
Yes.
Which is just, I'm sure that was on purpose, but it doesn't come into the story at all. When Janice realizes that what year Ben is at, she realizes this is the last chance for Ben to accomplish what he was trying to accomplish. And he hurries Magic to come along with an extreme urgency.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't blame Janice for being upset at being kept out of the loop. Janice has information. Mm-hmm. You should be pushing her for information.
There's things that she says in this episode like, why didn't you say this before?
Right.
Like, literally, that would have been helpful to know.
Right, but it goes both ways. Like, they're alienating her. The problem is none of them trust her, and she doesn't trust any of them.
Right.
And it makes sense.
It does.
Both directions, it makes sense. But you obviously all know you need each other.
Right. All right, so in the past, Addison tells Ben that they think they have found a way out. Ben tells Judith, but Judith wants to take the place down by getting the files and getting the others out.
Yeah, she said she's not ready to leave because there's too many people here and they all need help.
Addison says to stay on mission, and Ben talks to them both, and I love this. I just love this little bit where Ben basically speaks to both of them at the same time.
And he does that a lot, yeah.
So you're saying you won't leave unless we do this. Well, then this is the mission, Addison. Like,
right.
I love this moment.
Oh, also in this
Beautifully
moment,
acted,
right before that, he's reading the Odyssey, or looking through the Odyssey. Oh. And Addison was like, hey, that reminds me of you. And he's like, I hope not, because it took him 10 years to get home.
Yeah, let's hope that Ben gets home sooner than that, though I wouldn't mind if he kept leaving for 10 years.
I wouldn't mind 10 years of this show. No, but that doesn't mean he can't find his way home. Like, we can continue leaping in a safer manner, I think.
Right. Yeah, it's possible. Okay. In the future, Ian gets another alarm signaling that Martinez is coming. Addison informs Ben and tells him to keep moving. We see Martinez leap in and replace the orderly, whose name I've forgotten, Lawrence, as Addison watches this happen.
Yeah.
In the future, Ian talks about the Evil Leapers, which Martinez doesn't seem to be a part of.
Yeah, so we got a direct reference to the Evil Leapers.
Yes.
This was one of those meta moments where I feel like they're directly, like, addressing the fan commentary, right? So we've all season been like, ooh, is he an Evil Leaper? Are the Evil Leapers going to come up? I mean, we were talking about that before the series even started.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And Ian's very on the side of he's not an Evil Leaper. Addison wasn't so convinced. She was like, well, maybe.
The funny thing is here, both arguments are presented well. They both make sense coming from the characters that they come from. Addison is, it makes sense for her to be a little bit more suspicious.
Oh, absolutely.
But at the same time, Addison isn't suspicious enough later in the episode. We'll get to that later.
But yeah, we got that article up on the screen that's directly referencing the Evil Leapers by name.
Right.
Which was amazing.
Absolutely.
It's amazing because we know that is now considered canon in the new series. Where, some things from the original series aren't at this point. We don't have a waiting room and it hasn't been addressed why. Like there's things that they are just taking the liberty to not continue, and that's fine.
I'm fine with that.
But now we've confirmed the Evil Leapers exist, which means there's potential for that story to come into play. And even if it has nothing to do with Martinez, at some point in the future of this franchise, we can address the Evil Leapers.
Yeah. So that would be awesome to get back into. I just want to briefly talk about Ian's position here. He points out that Martinez could have sabotaged Ben at Salvation, in Salvation or Bus, but didn't. In fact, Martinez didn't seem to be doing anything in that episode. He could have also done the same thing in SOS, but also didn't. In fact, he seemed to be helping Ben there, and we were really confused about that, as was Ben, and that was actually properly addressed later in this episode. Addison, meanwhile, thinks that Martinez could have easily been behind the scenes sabotaging things.
Right.
And that makes sense from both her perspective and ours, because we didn't see what Martinez was doing.
Right. She said he could have helped set that fire. He could have been trying to start World War III. We don't know.
He just maybe failed.
You mentioned the Evil Leapers, though. This moment where Martinez leaps into Lawrence, that really is where I got the Evil Leaper 3 vibes come into play. Like, it reminded me so much
when Zoe
of
came in?
The prison, where Zoe leapt in to an employee. Like, this really is more of a prison than a hospital, let's face it. And I really felt that there.
The only difference
we're talking about Evil Leapers, and then we're getting this vibe where it feels very similar to that whole setting.
Yeah. The difference is that Addison knows instantly who he is because he can see him. And also, if Ben had actually been there to see it, they would have recognized each other.
Right.
Whereas in the original series, that episode that you're talking about, the three of them are talking, and none of them have any clue
Right.
who each other is, other than Aaliyah and Sam.
Aaliyah and Sam.
And
But we have it's a very similar dynamic, though. We
Mhm.
have Ben and Judith trying to, make plans here. And then we have Martinez come in as kind of the opposition to them, at least at this moment in time.
that's what we were led to believe, but that's
Yeah.
not actually how it turns out.
And I don't know. Like I said, it was just a lot of Evil Leaper 3 vibes.
So Ben is at painting class with Judith, and this is where we get some background into Judith. She used to like to garden, and we learn about how her husband and her wanted children. She wasn't able to provide them, which
Yep.
is how she ended up here, which is really scumbaggy of him, but probably not uncommon for the 1950s. Ben picks now to get himself into trouble because he learned something from Addison. I forgot what that was. He starts angrily painting.
They found the route to get
that's
to the
right.
office where the files are.
Right.
Which, in order to get there, they need to be in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And we learned right at the beginning, when Lawrence first brought him to his cell, that the first offense is you get bathroom cleaning duty.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. All right, so Ben starts angrily painting and saying he's
he was,
doing
like,
expressionism.
Throwing paint around.
He gets assigned to bathroom duty and throws Judith under the bus.
Yeah,
and
he goes, well, she's the one who told me to do
and
it.
gets her assigned to, and she does not know what Ben is doing
Right,
at this time.
she's not happy about this. And they're assigned, and they go to the bathroom. And again, I've got Evil Leaper 3 vibes.
Yeah.
Because in Evil Leaper 3, it's all about this murder that took place in the bathroom.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
So we saw this prison bathroom was like the point of, the leap itself in that episode.
Mhm.
So yeah, going in, they're both in the bathroom, and I felt very much like Ben and Judith were, comparable to Sam and Aaliyah in the prison.
So he ends up moving something out of the way. I'm not quite sure what
It
that
was like a grate.
bath. A grate? Okay. We see a vent, which Ben quickly opens. Judith wants to know how he knows that this will lead to the doctor's office, and Ben replies, because a team of highly intelligent geniuses spent the night figuring it out for
and
me.
I really thought he was about to tell her the truth.
Yeah.
It really felt like it. I was like, what are you doing, Ben?
She looks at him like he's crazy. I mean, look where he is. So that's not
Yeah,
a problem.
right. Honestly, how does she know that he is who he says he is and not
Right.
just some crazy patient?
Well, I mean, he did know her
He
sister's
knew her sister's name. I guess there was that. But, I mean, yeah.
I mean, at
you
this
just
point-
met this person who is a patient in this asylum,
Right.
and you're just going to go along with them
I
and
mean,
try
at
to
this
escape?
point, what are your options? Like, you don't have any other options.
Well,
so
I mean, she could just,
this is a desperate
not
ailment.
try and escape.
Right, I guess. But she really wants to get out of there and to expose.
We know she's been here for more than 3 months
Right.
because we know the husband remarried after 3 months.
Mhm.
Unless that didn't happen yet. I guess actually, technically, that could have not happened yet because that was a report from the future.
Right.
So, never mind.
Ben says he's a detective, and that's what he does.
Yeah, and that was good enough for her.
You're right. I mean,
When it's funny though, because just the last time they were talking in the library, he asked her, "How do we get into the office?" And
Right.
she was like, "I thought you'd know."
right.
So clearly he didn't know then, and that was just a little while ago.
Right. But somehow he managed to figure it out. They make it to the office. Addison appears. Ben can't crack the safe, and Addison proves her worth by showing him how it's done. Now, this is a complaint that we had, especially early on in the series, about Addison basically being useless.
Mhm.
And I think since then she's gotten better. And
It seemed a little too easy though. I felt like this. She was just like, "Oh, pick up the stethoscope and listen to the tumblers," and then he did it.
Mhm.
I don't think it's really as easy as someone telling you to listen.
I'm sure.
And
I think they just
it
wanted
would
to
have
move on
been
for a bit.
better.
Mhm.
We've already established that she can hear
Yeah.
whatever he hears. It would have been better if there was more interaction between them of her saying, "Stop there," because she heard the click
Right.
of what he's supposed to listen to,
Makes
and
sense.
really walking him through it more.
That would have taken up more time.
I'm sure, yeah.
And I'm sure they wanted to not do that.
And one thing I did learn from, cheating on my own rules and listening to Fate's Wide Wheel ahead of us recording is, they did have an interview with Dean Georgaris, whose name I finally committed how to say. And he said that this episode actually, it was originally cut in 10 minutes longer. They had to cut 10 minutes out for the final edit.
Wow.
So
maybe that scene was
could have
actually in
been.
there.
Could have been, yeah.
Could very well have been. Judith from the office calls her sister, but then they are intercepted by Martinez, who claims to be able to be there to help them.
Right. So Judith is seeing Lawrence, this terrible guy who, is working for the bad guy. Ben obviously knows it's Martinez.
Addison says she doubts that, and Martinez acknowledges her.
Yeah, he looks directly at Addison and says, I'm here to help you.
And, okay. So this was a head-scratching moment. Like, okay, Martinez can see Addison? So that...
It goes back to the theory that they originally had when we first met Martinez in Salvation or Bust, or like in the next episode when they were talking about him, that if they're using the same technology, if they're using the same imaging chamber, they can all see each other.
I didn't consider that a problem. I was just like surprised and shocked, like, holy crap, he can see
Which
her?
means he's seen her all along.
Well, and also kind of begs the question, does Martinez have anybody helping him?
That's my question as well.
Yeah.
And
it was a question from the fandom as well.
Yeah, people are asking. I want to know. We haven't seen one, obviously, which means Ben and Addison haven't seen one. And,
based on everything that we've been shown and indicated, we would see this other hologram.
Right. If he has a person in the imaging chamber helping him, that person would be visible. So either they've intentionally stayed away when he's around Ben and Addison so that they wouldn't see this person. Maybe it's somebody we know.
Right.
Or he doesn't have one and there's some other way he's getting information. Physically getting the
Someone
information.
suggested that Martinez doesn't actually need a hologram because he already knows what his mission is.
Yeah, which I don't buy because Martinez is getting updated information as Ben and Addison and team are changing things. If Martinez only knew what he knew before his first leap, he wouldn't know everything as it's happening.
Right.
We wouldn't have the whole mole situation.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point of that is he's getting updated information. He's always one step ahead.
Right.
So he's getting that information. But the question is, how?
Right.
If you don't have a hologram, how are you physically hearing the information?
Right.
So either advanced technology where he's getting information directly fed to his brain without the use of an imaging chamber, or maybe he's leaping home between leaps.
It's possible.
Maybe in this future that he's leapt from, they fixed the retrieval program. Maybe he goes home and re-leaps every time after getting the information for the next mission.
Yeah, maybe. Possibly.
Which would be an amazing thing if that's the case.
Right.
It would have ramifications for the whole entire, project that the answer is there. And it's going to be realized someday.
Yep. So anyway, Judith doesn't see Martinez, but the orderly he's replaced, and she doesn't trust him.
Right.
Either way, she probably wouldn't trust him.
No, nobody trusts anybody right here.
And then they are caught by security and the doctors. He orders Judith prep for surgery and wants to question Ben.
Yeah, and they send Lawrence Martinez away to go fix the tunnel situation so that this can't happen again. And so he missed his chance. And we know, obviously, at this point, he was sincere in saying, I'm trying to help you. He can't help now. He's been sent away. And he stays in character and leaves. Instead of, trying to overcome the doctor at this point. Which probably wouldn't have went bad because he had a bunch of other staff with him as well.
Yeah, he was outnumbered at this point.
Yeah.
Ben is injected with truth serum.
Truth serum.
And by the way, okay, so we brought the shock theater reference in.
Yes.
This actually reminded me of Starlight Starbright.
It did, right. He received he received truth serum in that episode.
Right.
So we have a reference there. But then also the whole conversations that came from the truth serum reminded me of Shock Theater as well.
Right.
Where, he had Sam had multiple personalities from his leapers coming in and talking about things in the future, which led them to being like, oh, he thinks he's in the future.
Right.
So we had similes to both episodes really happening here. And I thought it was great. Addison's like, stop it, Ben. You gotta be strong. And it's like, no, you're not going to be able to stop it.
No. The doctor concludes that he is a danger to himself and has him fitted for a straitjacket. And while I definitely see that as a conclusion that a doctor would come to at this point, it isn't really clear to me how sincere the doctor actually is.
No, he's looking for an excuse, obviously. I mean, he had already decided that both of these people, both Judith and Mr. O'Connor here are going to be... They're not leaving.
Right.
He's decided you're done. I'm killing you, basically.
Right.
Like, I'm experimenting on you. He even said in this, was it in this scene? It was either here or the next time that they meet. He was like, I'm going to cut your head open and experiment on your brain while you're still alive or right. something, like some really graphic description he said.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny because Ben is very forthcoming with information while he's on the truth serum. He tells him his real name, tells him all about Project Quantum Leap, all about time travel, what he's here to do.
Now, there were people who objected to this, saying that truth serum doesn't work like this, and it doesn't. It really just lowers your inhibitions so that you're more likely to say what you want, what they want to hear. But yeah, I mean that's a problem in media in general. That's not just a problem with this episode.
But also it would make sense that Ben doesn't have anyone to tell these things to, so maybe he does really want to talk once he's been, once that pressure of I know I can't has kind of removed. He's ready to talk.
Right.
Maybe Addison should have taken advantage of this and had some conversations with him.
Maybe. In the future, Ian and Magic with Janice, they're arguing with Janice over something. Her idea is not to save Judith. She says that Martinez leaps the same way Ben does, which means he is not an evil leaper. He leaps by helping people.
Right.
So, like I said, not an evil leaper, and that means that Martinez was actually helping Ben.
Right. Not an evil leaper, has comparable objectives, if not the same objectives at this point.
And in this episode, their objectives are aligned.
Right.
But their ultimate goals are very different.
Right.
Even though we don't really totally know what Martinez's
We don't know what his overall mission is.
Other than to probably
And this is one of those things that people are confused about. We don't know yet. That's the point. Nobody knows yet. Because we haven't learned it yet.
Right.
And it's okay that we don't know that yet. And also, this really kind of confirms right here when they're talking about this. Yeah, he's leapt from here. Like, this is confirmed. He's using our technology. He's using our accelerator. He's using our imaging chamber. It's not, before it was just a theory, and now they're really kind of saying, yeah, that's what's happening.
So the idea here from Janice is to stop Martinez by not saving Judith and trapping them both, Ben and Martinez, in the past. Because
if Martinez can't leap, he's not going to be able to
kill Addison.
That's just thrown right in there.
And
until now,
so basically,
we didn't know exactly what we're trying to save Addison from.
Janice basically says right here, like, Ben is all along intended to sacrifice himself.
Well, his plan was to stop Martinez.
Right.
In one of those, he had 3 attempts to do it. But the backup plan is sacrifice yourself, and they'll both be stuck here. But see, we didn't know this before, that Martinez kills Addison.
Right.
Like, I mean, we could have guessed that was one of the possibilities, but we're saying that's
now
that's
we know
it.
For sure
that's specifically the event that Ben leapt to stop, was Martinez killing Addison.
So Janice ends up strenuously arguing for this. Addison is very much against this. Ian speculates that Ben is using the same Ziggy, but in different time frames. And maybe Ziggy felt this leap needed 2 leapers.
Right.
So, this confused me. This is a head-scratching moment. Ian is saying that Ziggy is controlling the leaps?
Yeah.
I mean, is he saying that as a fact or that as a speculation?
I don't know.
Either way, this is enough to get Janice's attention. This will comment from Ian.
This is the comment she refers to later. Yes.
So Addison convinces Magic to let her go talk to Martinez to convince her to help.
She doesn't even. She's going.
Yeah.
Whether he agrees with her or not,
he
happens to agree with her, but she's like, he can see me, okay. And he's like, she says, I'm going to go talk to Martinez because she's not going to let Ben get stuck here forever.
Right.
And Magic's not going to either,
Magic says to Janice specifically that he promised Al that he would not get another time traveler stranded.
Right. That's their first objective. Above all else, we're not just abandoning Ben, even if that means saving Addison.
Janice congratulates him, saying he's about to win a battle that will cost him the war. This is a great scene. We've had argument scenes like this in the past. I found some of them incoherent, like Leap, Die, Repeat, that scene, where it wasn't really easy to follow everybody's logic. Here, everybody's position makes perfect sense for their characters.
But this goes back to what you were saying earlier about, why didn't Janice tell us this information before?
Right.
Why didn't she ever say, okay, you're going to meet Martinez 3 times?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just that fact alone would have been helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whatever you're going to do, you have to do it in one of these 3 times. And this goes back to she only wanted to tell Ben. But guess what? You don't have the option of telling Ben. So tell somebody. I know you don't trust them, but you got to try.
Right. Yeah, no. This is, it really does come down to a lot of these problems could have been solved if they had trusted each other, but nobody actually does.
Nobody trusts each other. And honestly, I think that's where we still are going to be when we get to the finale. When we finally get to this final showdown, I really think it's going to come down to all of these people need to work together.
Yes.
Because there has to be a way to solve all of your objectives without killing anybody or trapping anybody in time.
Right.
You're obviously all working for positive forces. So tell each other what your freaking goals are and solve it together.
Right. In the past, Martinez interrupts Judith's surgery, which is to get a lobotomy. He's about to stab the nurse, but is stopped by Addison, telling him not to. I don't know why this works, but it does. Martinez says he succeeds, and Ben leaps too. Addison doesn't think he'll succeed on his own. Ziggy says it's only a 10% chance of him succeeding completely by himself.
Now, did Ziggy actually say that, or did she just tell him that?
I have no way of knowing that.
Because I felt like she made that up in that moment.
It's possible.
It didn't look like they'd talked about that. She didn't use the hand link. I really feel like she was just trying to manipulate Martinez.
It's quite possible. Addison uses her military experience to convince Martinez to help Ben, so he can help Judith. Ben is about to be injected with something.
I think it was,
it wasn't truth serum.
I don't know.
He's already been injected with that. Knockout juice. Probably like some kind of anesthesia, but, I don't know.
Something to just put him down.
When he's helped by Martinez, knocking out the orderly, Ben is confused. Wait, you're helping me now? And asks Addison if he trusts Martinez.
Right, because Addison came in with Martinez.
Right.
So now we have all 3 of them in the room working on the same side, and it's because Addison convinced Martinez, you and Ben got to work together.
See, this episode, more than any other, demonstrated to me that Addison is actually a pretty great leader. I don't think we've had another episode that demonstrates this quite as effectively as it does here.
Yeah, and what we really talked about, when she was talking with Martinez is about how we knew she had military background, but she specifically was an intelligence officer. Her job was to, figure out what people should do, to plan the missions and this comes up later too, to be able to help people without actually being in the room with them.
Right.
It's all very applicable to being a hologram, which is funny because she wasn't hired to be the hologram.
Right. Addison says that she trusts Martinez about as much as he trusts them. Martinez and Ben bicker a bit, but Addison reminds them that they are working together. Ben smashes a window to cause an alarm to go off. Are you crazy, Ben asks? And Ben says, let's hope they think so.
Martinez asked.
Yes, right. Is that what wait?
You said Ben asked Ben.
Oh, Ben asked Ben. Well, geez, that's confusing. All right.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet. I think we might get there.
We will. I don't doubt it. Ben acts like Martinez is a hostage and then ends up knocking the doctor out with drugs. They grab the incriminating file and put it in a bag. Judith reacts to Martinez again, and Ben tells her he's there to help them. She asks to be sure, and Ben responds with fairly.
Yeah, he's not sure.
He's not so sure.
He's not sure. But, this is what you do.
Right.
You work with people who you have to work with to complete your goals. My keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yes.
There you go.
Makes sense.
Doesn't know if I trust you, but we are here and we have to figure it out together.
They go through the tunnels and they discover a manhole cover, which Martinez gets off. Judith.
Now, I thought in this moment he had this really long, sharp, pointy screwdriver thing very conveniently in his pocket that he used to take off this lock that they didn't know was going to be there.
Right.
It seemed very convenient.
And also, Addison really should have been keeping a closer eye on Martinez in general.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, this is the moment where she really should have been more suspicious of this man, and she pays for not being more suspicious. Let's see. Okay, so
they open the manhole, and Elaine is there, waiting for Judith, which
and they have an
also
emotional...
seemed really convenient that she's standing at the manhole.
Right.
Like she said, meet us behind the asylum, but it seems very convenient that you're coming out this manhole nobody knew was there, and that's where you're all meeting, but okay.
Yeah, they have an emotional reunion, and I'm like, guys, you have these people coming after you. Maybe you should get a move on here.
Now, I knew at this moment, Martinez got up, Judith got up, but Ben is still inside.
Right.
And I knew in that moment, we're in trouble, that Ben is the only one left inside this building.
Addison ends up saying that as soon as they cross the leap, both Martinez...
The bridge.
What did I just say?
Cross the leap.
Okay. Cross the bridge, they will both leap.
Yeah, so Elaine is taking her sister Judith. They're on an island, right? The asylum is an island. There's a bridge that they have to cross to escape. Now, here's my other question. Why is Ben not going with them? Like, why are they not taking this private detective, Liam O'Connor, that they put in the hospital, that's now escaping the hospital as well, with them in their car to cross this bridge?
Not sure.
Like, wasn't that the original thing? Like, they're in the office, and he said, call your sister to pick us up. And she was like, hey, come get us.
Well, I think that was still the plan. But
then they just got in their car and left.
Right. Yeah, I have no idea why. Yeah, that's a bit of a hole. But,
and she was even like, thank you so much. Goodbye. Like, you gotta take him with you?
Right.
Nope. And then you're gonna pay him? Remember, you said you'll pay him as soon as you get out?
Yeah, that's a little bit of a hole. I didn't notice that. Ben ends up thanking Martinez. He tells him not to get used to it, and then stabs Ben in the neck.
With that giant, long, pokey thing that he got the lock open with, which clearly he was carrying it for this purpose all along.
Right. So he tells him that he had his orders to take him out to prevent stopping him from completing his mission.
Yeah, he said that you're a danger to my overall mission. And this is right here. This doesn't mean Martinez is evil. We've already established he's not an evil leaper.
I don't think that Martinez is evil. I'm not sure what his overall objective is, but I get the impression, we saw this earlier, that Martinez is a soldier.
Yes,
and he's going to follow orders.
Right, and he said, I got the order to take you out.
So, this is
the same thing as Janice was trying to convince Ben to take Martinez out.
Yeah.
Both of them are trying to eliminate the other one, although Ben doesn't really know it.
Right.
He's been kind of in the dark this whole time. But in order to stop them from completing their overall goal. And we know Ben's overall goal is to save Addison.
Right.
We don't know what Martinez's overall goal is.
It's probably not even to kill Addison.
It's not. It's definitely not to kill Addison.
But that just ends up happening.
Addison is, in the original timeline, before Ben leaps, a casualty of whatever happens in episode 18. Whatever would have happened if it was just Martinez leaping.
Right.
Whatever he's doing to complete his overall goal, Addison's a casualty of that. Now, it doesn't mean he's trying to murder her. This is another area where people are very confused. They're like, well, he's going to kill Addison. He tried to kill Ben here. Obviously, he is evil. No, he's not. He's doing what has to be done to complete his mission. Something that Ben's not going to do. Ben's a pacifist. That was actually brought up again
by Martinez.
Martinez brought it up because he heard them talking in Salvation and knows that he's a pacifist. And, Ben wouldn't do it. Sam's not going to kill people to complete his missions. He's always going to find a better way. Like, he'll kill the bad guys if he has to. But he's not going to be like, oh, go kill that innocent person in order to save this other person. He's not going to do that.
Right.
But Martinez will. Martinez, like you said, he is a soldier. He's going to do what has to be done, what he's told to do. And he's in the middle of some kind of a war.
Right. And as far as he's concerned, Ben is an enemy combatant.
Well, Ben is trying to stop him, so he has to stop Ben first.
Right.
And so, yeah, his goal right now is, I'm going to kill you, because if I don't kill you, you're going to kill me, is his, the mentality. I'm going to kill you so that you can't stop me from doing what I need to do. And honestly, I don't know at this point if Martinez knows he's going to kill Addison.
That actually was a question, because, he sees Addison. Does he know for a fact that...
I don't think he does.
Probably not.
Because for him... this is the first time this is happening.
Mhm.
You know, we know that this happened once already, whatever's happening, and whatever happens leads to Ian leaping and telling Ben to leap.
Mm-hmm.
So in the original history, the original future history, Ben's not there, right? Martinez is doing all of this without Ben,
Mm-hmm.
and Addison ends up dead.
Mm-hmm.
But this is all happening now for Martinez.
Right.
So unless he's been given that information, which he could have been, he's not going to know that he kills Addison.
Right.
And maybe we're already on the path where that changes. You
Mhm.
know, maybe he just kills Ben now or whatever. But I don't feel like he knows. I don't think that he knows I'm going to have to kill her.
Right.
He might know that he's going to encounter these people,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't get the impression that he knows he's going to kill her, or that, you know, he knows that's that in any way is a direct like order to kill her. I really think
Mhm.
she's just a casualty in whatever's going
Probably.
to happen.
I mean, that's my take on it as well. Ben ends up falling into the sewer, which probably that length of fall probably would have killed him that alone.
I don't know. It was
You would have at least broken
10
some bones.
feet, 15 feet maybe.
Mm.
Definitely though the wound, the
gaping wound in
foot
his neck.
long, you know, screwdriver through the neck was pretty imminent.
Yeah. That usually results in pretty quick death.
Yeah, he was
when you're bleeding from the neck
bleeding,
that deep.
and yeah, I'm sure that Martinez thought he took him out here.
I mean, that would be the natural assumption. I'm not even gonna like blame him for not sticking around to find out.
Where did he go?
I assume he leaped. Well,
He
actually-
wouldn't have been able to leap until
Ben
they
left.
crossed the bridge.
Well, yeah. So where did
So
he
he
go?
just ran.
I guess. I mean, I don't see why he would stick around.
We don't see him again, so he must have just went back in the building.
Maybe.
Through
Like,
the front.
hi guys. Anyway, Addison can't do anything to help because she's a hologram. Judith won't cross the bridge for another 5
Yeah,
minutes.
they're still 5 minutes away from crossing this bridge.
Ben's not going to make it.
And Magic says that Ben doesn't have 5 minutes.
And Janice is like, yep, so that means he's going to die, and he's going to die for nothing.
Yeah, because if Liam dies, Ben dies. We've
Mhm.
established that they know this fact in this.
Yes.
In this version
said
of the
that,
mythology.
We said that in the very first episode.
Yep.
Magic tells Addison that he can help the situation, as she has done previously, without physically being there, because she's the intelligence officer, as you mentioned.
And he refers to her as Captain Augustine
Mhm.
when he goes on. He's speaking to the soldier in her directly.
Addison tells him, yes, sir, and goes into soldier mode.
Yeah.
She motivates Ben to get up and climb the ladder. He manages to do that somehow. He finds a car and cauterizes that wound to stop the bleeding with
Yeah.
a cigarette lighter.
Yeah, which Addison figures out what to do and has him do that. And I did have one little thing here, too, is from my memory as being a child in cars that, you know, this was a thing. Didn't it take like a few minutes? You had to push it in, and it took a few minutes before it heated up and popped back out.
It's definitely not an instant thing.
And he just kind of grabs it like it's ready.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that wouldn't have worked like that, but, you know, whatever. They share a great scene together where Addison tells them more about their
yeah,
relationship.
he said, he's like, tell me about us. Because he thinks he's dying, and she kind of does too.
Mm-hmm. And there are plenty of complaints about Caitlin Bassett, her acting by some of the fandom. I'm not in that camp. But they can go pound sand after this scene because this is great acting.
Oh,
by
yeah,
both of
she
them,
did a
both of
great
their
job.
parts.
It was very highly emotional scene.
They also, the fandom has complained about the chemistry between these two. Once again, this is perfect chemistry between the two of them in the scene. It's just all pitch perfect acting from both of them.
And what we learned is Ben likes all foods. He has no foods he doesn't like.
Well, I think we kind of learned
Addison
that a couple
doesn't like
episodes
that
ago.
about
Yep.
him. They both hate dancing unless they're at a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And I really hope that we get to see their wedding.
Mm.
He needs to get home and they need to get married so they can dance at their wedding.
Yes.
Because we've set it up right here. They only dance at weddings. So
Maybe
we need
at
to see
the,
them dancing at their own.
Maybe at the conclusion of season 11, we can finally see that.
And we got the story of how they fell in love.
Mm-hmm.
And this was, it was very similar to learning the story of how Sam and Al met and became friends,
Mhm.
bonding at Starbright. Is that it? I always
Starbright, yeah, the
Starbright.
Starbright Project, yeah, pretty sure that's right.
And that is that they were both working late at night on the accelerator and talking about why they joined the project. And Addison was talking about how, Magic told her about it, and she just had to join this project because she couldn't imagine doing anything better with her life than making positive impacts in history.
So we actually get a lot here. We get
Yeah.
about the history of their relationship, Addison's motivation for joining the project in the first place.
The fact that Magic personally recruited her.
Mm-hmm.
And we learn about they fell in love working on the accelerator together late at night. So, yeah, it's really it's one of those, like I said, it reminds me of, how we get backstory between Ben and Sam. These kind of things that we're not necessarily going to see, but we're told everything we need to know about it to give us that story, to give us the history of what's going on between these characters.
Addison notices people, nurses specifically.
And Ben he's 90% passed out at this point, if not from the loss of blood, from the pain of that lighter on his neck. He's done.
Definitely not in good shape.
He's very unresponsive, and it just takes that pressure from Addison screaming at him that you have to wake up, you have to do this.
And Ben ends up, who doesn't have much energy left, ends up honking that horn to get their attention, and Ben bleeps.
Yeah. Now, you can note here, after cauterizing that wound, he was going to live long enough to leap, right? But he just saved his host's life by getting those nurses' attention. He was going to leap either way.
Yeah, Liam would have leaped back in and
died in this car.
That would have kind of sucked.
Yeah.
That kind of would have reminded me of the end of the first episode of the
trilogy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Magic and Janice. Oh, a scene with Magic and Janice. Janice says that he should have listened to her. They almost lost everything.
And this is Magic bringing her home to Beth's house. This is in front of Beth's house where this is happening. So after all this, she's still under house arrest. She's being brought home, escorted home, where I'm sure she's getting the ankle monitor put back on.
Magic points out they didn't. Judith ended up moving in with her sister and adopting a child. Liam went on to live a fruitful life and a good career, and the doctor's license was suspended. Now, this is a trend where we're getting the information about what happened to these people from a different source than Addison just telling Ben.
Right.
We're learning this after the fact, kind of like what happened in the previous episode.
Yeah, Ben's on for the defense. We got Jen was getting the information at the project.
And I actually rather like that they're doing it in a different way, that we're still getting that information.
This whole description about how Judith moved in with her sister and adopted a child, it also brought me to American Horror Story.
Oh, yeah?
Because that's what happened at the end of American Horror Story.
Wow.
Right? At the end of that season,
the
asylum. His sister Jude moved in with whatever the heck his
that's
character's
right,
name was, and they raised the little alien babies together.
Right. The ending of that season was really confusing.
That whole season was a little weird because it had the whole alien thing going on as kind of like almost a side note. But anyways, there was this whole going and living and raising a child that's not yours comparable for Sister Jude.
Janet says, Admiral, do you really think we can win a war without a sacrifice? And Magic says, he doesn't know, but they are going to try.
Yeah, so she really still thinks we failed. She says we had all these attempts to stop him and we didn't stop him. And now we're going to go into this final showdown, and Janice thinks it's over at this point.
So this seems to indicate that Janice herself was in the military. Did we already know that?
I don't think we know that, and I don't necessarily know if I felt that.
Well, the way she says it, she calls him Admiral by rank, and then says, do you really think we can win this war without sacrificing
But remember,
anyone?
She's Al's daughter. So
you
even
think
if she's not in the military, she was raised.
She's still got that mentality.
She's a whatever the Navy version of an Army brat is. I don't know what the term is for that.
Right.
She was raised by Al.
Right.
She knows magic. Like they were close. Their families were close.
That makes sense. He tells her that if she... Oh, yeah, okay. So Magic says that it's a two-way street. If you want to know more, you have to tell me more. There's something you're hiding, so what is it?
Right.
Why aren't you telling me?
Finally, because she knows all of the plans we had are now done, there's really, like, every attempt that we were going to have, we had these 3 chances, they're gone. She finally is like, fine, I'm going to tell somebody. She decides to open up to Magic. Again, because he is the person at the project that she has a relationship with. And she's come to realize what she came to realize in this episode, so she thinks she can trust him, maybe more than she thought before.
She ends up smashing his phone, and I'm surprised Magic isn't more pissed about that. I would have expected an angry reaction, like, what the heck did you do that for?
And that goes back to, you know, they're friendly. Like he's been in her life probably since she was little.
Also, isn't there another way they could have done that?
Oh, absolutely.
Couldn't she have just shut the phone off?
Right.
Or gone and put the phone in the house or something?
Right. But he's
why
like,
did she have to be so dramatic about it?
He acts like he is talking to a child. He's like, you don't have to smash something just to get my attention. And she's like, no, like,
she does.
That phone's hooked to the project, and they cannot hear what I'm about to say to you. And he realizes she's going to tell me something, finally.
She says that she knows who the mole is, and she got this information based on a comment from Ian.
Yeah.
And we have a lovely and very creepy montage.
She said, I don't even know if Ben knew who it was. Ben told her there's a mole.
Yep. And we have this scene where we see, like, Jen for the only time in the episode.
Yeah. And they're like, and then it's like, oh, they're telling us it's Jen.
Right. That's the thought I got,
and
too.
Then
we see Addison.
We see a bunch of, like, random extras that, you know, they've got a lot of people working on this project. It's funny none of them ever do anything. Like, especially since Ian was like, yeah, I have to do my job and run security because Jen's not here. Well, she's the head of security. Doesn't she have her own personnel under her?
You would figure that she would have, like, some deputies or something.
But yeah, we see a bunch of people we don't know. And then we focus on Ian, and I'm like, oh, they're telling us it's Ian.
Right. And we also see Ziggy, the little display. And finally, Jan says that the mole is Ziggy.
Yeah.
And that makes so much sense.
And Magic says, what?
His reaction is perfect. I love it.
I said at the exact same time as him, what?
But if you think about it, it makes so much sense.
It really does.
It's Ziggy versus Ziggy. The current Ziggy versus the future Ziggy.
And this is the biggest point that people online are very confused about. Now, Ziggy is the mole. Ziggy's the mole. We're told that. That does not mean Ziggy is evil.
Right.
It does not mean Ziggy is sabotaging the project. It does not mean Ziggy's trying to kill Ben and Addison.
Right.
That's not what they mean. They simply mean Ziggy, this computer that records everything.
Right. Ziggy, anything that happens in the past,
Ziggy
future
is
Ziggy
the catalyst for how they're getting their information. That's what mole means. And mole means you're sharing information. Right. It doesn't mean you're a spy. Like, it doesn't mean you're, like, you know, the villain. And that's not what they're saying. They're not saying Ziggy. And there's a lot of people who are like, oh, so this is proving it. You know, Ziggy is, what's his name? Lothos?
Lothos, yeah.
Like Ziggy, no, that's not what they're saying at all. Not even close. They're saying this is how Martinez. Yeah. I almost said Ramirez again. This is how Martinez is always one step ahead. Because Martinez is getting his information from future Ziggy.
Right.
And future Ziggy knows everything. Right. Because it's Ziggy.
And Ziggy doesn't really have any reason to withhold that information.
Right.
Ziggy probably doesn't even know what Martinez's mission is. His mission, like his final mission.
Right.
So he's not helping Martinez kill Addison or Ben. He's just
giving the information as it's being asked of him, her, it, they,
whatever.
Ziggy.
You know, the pronouns things gets really more confusing when we're talking about a computer.
Well, we're talking about a computer that originally was called he, then was given a female voice, then was called she, and now doesn't have any voice or personality, which is really sad.
Yes. We're hoping that this will lead to Ziggy getting a personality.
I am so hopeful that we get to hear Deborah Pratt voicing Ziggy again. Soon. Like, this season. I want to hear it.
Right. All right, so we get a promo. Sam is
There was no leap out.
There's no leap out.
No, just the trailer.
Ben is basically a flight attendant.
Yep.
So that means he's leaping into another female, which means 7 out of 18 episodes.
Yep, another female.
I don't think he's going to end up leaping into a female in the final episode. I think he's going to end up leaping into himself.
Into himself?
Yes.
He's going to leap into somebody at the project.
You're right.
Maybe even multiple leaps are possible in that final episode. Yeah, because we've seen, the precedent for that already. That we can do multiple leaps within an episode.
The episode's description for the next episode is when Ben leaps in Aboard a 1970s passenger jet as a flight attendant, he must outwit its hijackers before it mysteriously crashes into the Atlantic. Worse, he has to do all this without Ziggy's help. Now that leads me to the conclusion that they're going to shut Ziggy down.
Absolutely. They're going to shut Ziggy down because they realized Ziggy is the way Martinez is getting this information. And
Which,
if we're going to get ahead of Martinez.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if they shut Ziggy down, they don't have Addison being able to contact Ben either, because the imaging chamber goes down.
I don't know. I'm not sure, because I feel like we've had instances before where we can communicate through the imaging chamber, but Ziggy's down, so we don't have any information.
Oh, that's true. Okay, yeah.
I feel like it's a separate thing.
But Addison, what is Addison even going to be able to tell him? Because
right, they're going to get the initial. They're going to get the initial information, which we saw in the trailer, that this flight's going to crash tonight and everybody dies. After that, they're going to shut Ziggy down. Now, that doesn't mean that Ian and the whole team can't still do their own research to find helpful information. Anyway. Right. This is something we've said, is like, what is Ziggy really doing? But they're just not going to record any of this into Ziggy's memory banks or whatever. Right.
And I get the feeling that we might hear from Ziggy in this episode.
So we're not going to get like these percentages of, if you do this, this is going to happen. If you do that, that's going to happen. Right. But we'll get, the team being, here is what did happen. Oh, here's what the black box said. All of that they're going to be able to find. I don't think we're really going to get a huge advancement on the story, because we know Martinez isn't going to be there. Right. Because we've already been told you're only going to meet 3 times before your final showdown. So this is kind of a reprieve from that, I think, where it's going to be more like, oh, crap, you're in a plane that's going to crash. Which is comparable to an original series episode as well. Yeah. The Bermuda Triangle episode, which we just watched recently.
Oh, yeah?
I forget what that was called.
Ghost Ship.
Ghost Ship, yep. So that was one of the last episodes Adam and I watched. And, it goes back to something you and I were talking about. I don't think it was on the air. We were saying, that this new series has a tendency to have like these really big cast of extras or extras and guest stars. Yeah. That the original series was more often like a smaller scope of people in the episode. Yeah. And I can see that here, if we compare it to that episode, Sam was on a plane with 4 or 5 people.
I think there was about 5.
It was him, the pilot, the stewardess, and the couple. Yeah. It's 5 people. And now, Ben is on a flight full of people. Right. The whole like commercial airline. So I thought that was interesting to note that we had just, had that conversation about like the scope of the number of people that we see in an episode being just tending to be larger in this series. A little more grand.
I think it would work a little better if we didn't have so many characters that we focus on. I think that's some of the reason why some of the pacing is off, because we are focusing on way too many people. I think one of the reasons why the project scene where they're all arguing is more effective here is because we don't have 6 different voices. We only have like Magic, Janice, and Addison talking in the scene. We do have Ian there, but I don't really recall Ian expressing a point of view. We just have the 3 points of view. And I think that's better and more effective than having 6 people shouting.
So do you think maybe that's a reason that Jen's not around?
Possibly.
Because Jen would be very strongly to speak words against Janice.
That is another reason why I think that Jen's presence in this episode is so limited.
Because if Janice and Jen are in a room together, it's not going to be a civil discussion. Right.
And it wasn't necessarily between Addison and Janice either, but like we said, we have less voices, so we can have a more coherent argument, right? Where we can see the arguments more clearly, and we can follow along, which is something that maybe we weren't necessarily able to do in the past with this series. So it's more coherent, and in my view, better, which is why, in my view, this episode was as strong as it was, because we were limiting our focus, more so than maybe some of the episodes this season, right? And I think maybe that's something they should consider doing going forward in season 2.
Right. Pick what you want to say in this episode.
Right.
You don't have to do everything every episode.
Right. So, do you have any other thoughts?
Yes. So I told you I have a theory that brings in the music of this episode. So I was, this is while I was looking up the songs and thinking about the music. I came up with a theory.
Okay.
That we've been foreshadowing that our end thing here, Martinez's end goal, and this is totally just like me, probably super overthinking. I don't have any advanced knowledge, so if any of this is true, it's not spoilers. It's literally me just theorizing, and I came up with this 2 hours ago. So that's all this is. I think that Martinez and future Ziggy and whoever else they're working with is trying to prevent the actual World War III atomic war.
Oh?
Yes. And somehow, during whatever they need to do to keep that from happening, Addison becomes a casualty.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we have to find a way to do whatever he's trying to do without killing Addison or Ben or anybody else. So we had the nuclear reactor in Leap, Die, Repeat.
Mm-hmm.
That came up already. That's in the scope of what we've been looking at, right? There's nuclear reactor, talking about it blowing up. In SOS, we had an actual threat of World War III happening.
Yes.
That Ben caused that threat,
mm-hmm.
by the way. That didn't happen originally.
Mm-hmm.
Ben's presence caused that threat of World War III. They fixed it.
Yes.
And then we've got the songs from this episode, which is, where all of my headspace was when I was thinking all this. The song Shaboom, which is, the one that was playing in the breakfast scene.
Mm-hmm.
That's named after the sound that an atomic bomb makes. Like, that's what the song's about. It's a love song, but Shaboom Shaboom is talking about bombs going off and trying to survive that and hoping to survive that and dreaming about the person you love loving you and having this life together. And this was in 1954, at the start of the Cold War, when this was really something on people's mind, like, oh, we're gonna all die in an atomic war. And then Mr. Sandman, which was the other song in this episode, which we talked about how that was in Back to the Future. It's also used in the Fallout video game series, which is all about the aftermath of an atomic war. And that song is kind of represented throughout that series as well.
Oh, okay.
So I was just seeing lots of things that talk about World War III and bombs coming into play. And I mean, I didn't dig any deeper, but maybe there's other instances where there could be nods to this, some foreshadowing. So I think that's where we're going. I think that could be the mission that they sent this soldier on, who's willing to do anything, whatever it takes. Because, I don't know, is that a mission you could put somebody who is a pacifist on? No, you're going to put somebody who's going to do anything that they're told they have to do. Right.
Well, wouldn't that also describe Addison?
Yeah.
She's also a soldier, so why wouldn't she also?
I'm sure she would do what she had to do if she had to do it. But in this future, wherever we are, where Martinez started, I think we're at the brink of war.
Okay. So yeah, I actually have a theory also that I didn't already discuss. I think we have 3 distinct timelines. We're in 3 different locations.
Okay.
We have our current project timeline. A little further into the future, where Ian comes from, where Ian ends up leaving, probably where Addison ends up getting killed, and then whatever timeline Martinez
is from.
leaves from.
Right.
Basically.
Right,
So,
because Martinez's starting point probably isn't the same place we're going to be in episode 18.
And I think what I would like to see in the finale, which, by the way, we already have an episode title for, and a description. I'm not going to bother reading the description for that, but the final episode of the season is called Judgment Day, which does fit into what you were just saying.
Yes, it does.
Because, Judgment Day is from the, when we talk about that, it conjures up another time travel movie series, the Terminator series.
Right.
Which had humanity wiped out by Terminators and Skynet and all that. So, yeah, we already have an episode title for that. And
obviously, we can conclude that that Ben and Martinez are both going to end up leaping to the same place, and that place is going to include our people.
Right. I'm guessing that it'll be the middle timeline in between where Martinez is and where the current project is.
And we might even get to see how and why Ian ends up leaping. This gets very confusing, though, because you have the whole thing of, the first time this would have happened, Ben's not there.
And I would like
And
to
now this
actually
isn't
see the
this
original
isn't
timeline.
right. And I said that all along. I would love some alternate history stuff. Like, even if it's not a full episode, but if they squeeze some of that in there to explain all these different timelines, I think that would be helpful.
Which is a lot to ask for 40 minutes.
I know.
So hopefully some of this is covered in the next episode.
I know. Yeah. Like, I picture this, like, I have it in my head, like, all these things that should be happening. And I mean, we might be totally off. Who knows what's going to happen or when any of this happens. We know it's the future from where the project sits today, because that's been what they've been telling us all along, right? The whole slingshot so he can leap to the future.
Mm-hmm.
We've never seen anyone leap to the future.
So that would be really new to the series.
That's new.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, it's not necessarily the future for Martinez. Like you said, he's probably coming from a further point in the future than whenever episode 18 takes place. We probably shouldn't be spending all this time talking about 18 yet, but here we are.
Yeah. I mean, we have been right along talking about speculating about what's going on
for the season,
in the
and we just happen to be that's where we're going to end the season. And I do think they're going to keep some of this. I don't think we're going to literally wrap everything up in a pretty bow.
Yeah, I kind of hope they keep Martinez as an antagonist, because I'm kind of starting to actually like Martinez.
I like Martinez. I like everybody. I said this last week. Like, I don't want anybody to go away. I like all of our characters. I want Janice to come work with them. I want Martinez to stick around. I just want everybody to be kind of on the same page, though. Like, we don't need to all be at fault with each other.
Right.
Like, how about we get together and figure out how to get Ben home, how to get Sam home. I'd love to go back there. Yeah, there's so much. There's so many ways this could still go, but I feel like we're really looking at it now, right? Before we were like, we don't even know what we're trying to get to.
What the actual conversation was supposed to be.
Right. And now I feel like we, for the most part, know what we're talking about. We're talking about stopping Martinez from killing Addison, and that's going to happen because he's trying to complete some ultimate goal. And then there's the whole
also
Ian.
speculated at one point that we might be in for like a complete timeline reset. Like where once the episode's events is invalidated, the entire timeline will shift. Right. And maybe even Ben won't be the Leaper anymore. Maybe it'll turn back into Addison as it originally was. But we'll see.
Or, I mean, yeah, they could go so many different directions with this.
I mean, I like Ben as the Leaper, so I don't know that I want to change that, but still, it might be interesting.
Yeah. And there was one... So I told you I did listen to Fate's Wide Wheel already. And one of the guests that they had on was the writer of this episode. I forget her name. Again, it was her first writing credit.
Yep.
So she was on speaking with them, and they were doing a live recording. And she said, oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm getting this wrong. She's not the one who said this. It was Dean who said this.
Okay.
She was there.
Dean, who's one of the executive producers.
One of the executive producers.
As well as a director and writer on the series.
And he said something that felt like a slip. Okay. And he covered it up and was like, oh, I was just saying that, as an example. It felt like a slip. He was talking about Ian, and they were talking about when Ian... was struggling with the whole finding out that they were the person who told Ben to leap, and what are my, what was I acting for good or for bad? Did I make a good choice? Like this whole thing where they were talking to Rachel. And so they're talking about that, and he's referring to Ian and said something about like, yeah, if he knew that, or if they knew that they were going to do this in 40 years. 40 years. Wow. And I forget which of the hosts of Fate's Wide Wheel, one of them said 40 years. Right. Like, tell us more.
That's the Ian time. That's the Ian timeline that he was from.
Dean Georgaris was talking about Ian.
Yeah.
And about
being
Ian's
40 years
leap,
in the future.
And mentioned 40 years.
Wow.
And he immediately took this back and was like, oh, I just, was throwing that number out as an example.
Right.
That seems like a weird thing to just throw out as an example.
Right.
Because I thought we were talking about, like, a couple years? Maybe 10?
How old would that make Ian at this point? Right. I mean, like, how old is Ian now?
So, I don't know if that's really a thing.
Right.
But he threw that number out into space, and that number's out there now. So, I'll put that number into our conversation.
Wow.
That was that a slip of the tongue, or was he really just on a totally different,
Do we know
line of thought at that time?
Do we know how old Ben or Addison is?
Yeah, we do. Because we know Addison was born in 1987.
Okay. So that'd make her like a few years younger than me at this point. So that's about
She's in her late 30s.
Okay.
Mid to late 30s.
So 40 years would make her like 75. So I don't know.
Well, there could be another timey-wimey leapy thing going on. We
Right.
don't know
Right.
for sure that
Right.
the Ian that leaped is the Ian that's at the same time Addison dies.
Right. So there could be another timeline.
There could be a whole nother thing where some point in the future, maybe Ian spends their whole life trying to fix this the way that Al spent his whole life trying to save Sam, and maybe Ian's really old when they finally figure out how to leap and reset the timeline.
Wow. That's a lot to do with 40-something minutes of television. I mean, unless we don't stick with wrapping it up this season.
I mean, I feel like we're spiraling now, but
Right.
anything's possible, really, when you're talking about time travel and multiple levels of time travel and different people leaping from different times. And yeah, it's enough to break anybody's brain.
Yeah, I feel like I'm heading there already, or that it's already gone. Yeah. So, any other thoughts about this episode or anything else?
Well, I think we can leave it there.
Okay.
And pick this conversation back up after watching The Friendly Skies,
Which will be
soon.
I'm probably dropping this on Monday, so you guys are going to watch that tonight, and then we will be talking about it the next day. So,
yeah. So The Friendly Skies, actually, it's the day that we're recording this right now, the promo photos for that episode dropped. And they don't show much. They show Ben in a stewardess outfit.
Which is funny because I just got back from flying on an airplane.
Yeah.
And my ears still haven't popped completely from that experience.
So it's probably a good thing that wasn't the episode you're traveling over.
Yes. I definitely didn't need to have hijackers in my mind as I'm traveling on an airplane, that's for sure.
Hijackers?
Yeah.
Do we have hints that hijackers are involved in this?
That was in the episode description.
Oh.
Yep. You must stop a plane from crashing in the Atlantic and outwit hijackers.
I see. I missed that part. I thought we were just like, all we knew was it was a plane crash. Okay.
Nope. Yep. Hijackers are involved.
Okay, so we're getting another alternate history here because I don't think anything like that ever happened in the 70s.
No, not that I know of. But the only hijacking that I know that is famous is the 9/11 one.
Right.
So we would like to hear from you. Did you like this podcast? What did you think of this episode? And Stacie can be reached at?
I can be reached at TV and Coupon Talk or on the Facebook group that we were talking about last week. I want to know, what do you guys think we're going into ahead of the finale? So give us your theories, give us your thoughts, give us all of your things, and we will talk about them in the next episode because that's going to be our last chance to talk about it before we know. So tell us now. Give us all of your thoughts and opinions on where this is going for episode 18.
And you've definitely heard me shout out people, so if you have an interesting comment, I will definitely bring it up on air. If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join my Core Productions Facebook page. You can join the the Quantum Leap page that Stacie now runs, and that which I might be a mod on eventually. You can buy something from the Corn Production store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee, which is a new way to support content creators such as myself. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to my channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Corn Productions, signing off.